Hey everybody, I wanted to make a quick review of the Rolling Stones' new album, Hackney Diamonds. Just came out, there's been a lot of hype about it, and I thought, I haven't done enough album reviews lately. I've been doing other things, and I've been kind of remiss in general. This is a really good album that's been, Keith and Mick and Ronnie have been doing a lot of interviews, but this is a really good album. A lot of people are saying it's the best Stones album since Tattoo You, and that takes you way back to the early 80s. So if that's the case, it's definitely a major must-have for all you Rolling Stones fans, and I'm a Stones fan, so I bought it. But not too crazy about the cover. Several other reviews have noted the covers. It's got that kind of Formula Rock look to it, of the late 70s, 80s, that Formula Rock. And, I've always heard in Formula Rock, they kind of de-emphasize the band. So like in a lot of the earlier classic rock that I know a lot of us love, the band was always kind of featured, on the album cover and who played stuff. And in the late 70s, early 80s, Formula Rock, they kind of went to these kind of glitzy graphic design type covers, and the band wasn't as emphasized. I feel like this has kind of a Formula Rock cover. On the back, you get the track listings. The inside, you open it, you just get this. Now, maybe there's a deluxe version I didn't buy with some photos. I thought I'd get some nice photos of the band or something or more. Inside the album, you get, the album comes on a black sleeve, and then you get this, which is pretty nice. On the album, you get this credit that's got who played what on it and all the credits. The album is dedicated to Charlie Watts, and he plays on 2 of the tracks on this album. And Stevie Wonder's on this album. Elton John is on this album. Paul McCartney plays bass on a track. And they're just kind of mixed in, but of course you've got great players like that. It was especially nice to see Stevie Wonder, because a lot of people forget Stevie Wonder was a classic rock artist, because I remember them playing like Superstition and My Sharia Moore and some of those early Stevie Wonder songs right in there in the early 70s on FM rock radio in Detroit. Stevie Wonder's a great classic rock artist, as well as being a great soul and Motown artist. But it's a really good album. Then I don't know how it happened. Maybe I clicked wrong, but I got the CD. And you know what? Doggone it, on the CD, I'm tearing all this stuff up. On the CD, you actually get the lyrics. So it's different. On this, you get all the credits on the vinyl, at least the version. Maybe there's a deluxe version of the vinyl that I didn't buy. Sometimes they'll do that these days. They'll have like the regular vinyl for $20 and some deluxe collector's edition for $100, and then you'll get all kinds of photos. But I didn't get any of that. But here you get the credits. In the CD, you actually get the lyrics. See, those are actually the lyrics. But it's a very good album. I mean, I really recommend it. If you like the Stones, you'll like this album. And, it's just great to see people that have been around so long. The Stones are as old as I am. Literally. I mean, they've been around for a long time. And they're still doing it, and all the things they've been through, the loss of Brian Jones and the loss of Charlie Watts. Boy, that stinks, didn't it? There's a lesson there somewhere. Oh, we're going to postpone the tour because everybody has to wear a mask and no one can be gathered with over 2 people, in the same room. Okay, we'll postpone it. And then meanwhile, Charlie Watts died. So there went your last chance to see Charlie Watts. Great job, guys. Super duper good job there. Thank you for that. I was going to go see that tour when but anyway, it's a really good album. Couple interesting things about it. They hired a guy named Andrew Watt. I wasn't that familiar with him, but I think younger people into pop maybe will know who he was. He's a producer, and one of his trademarks is he's supposedly good at kind of doing legacy acts and making their sound kind of modern, but still retaining the character and integrity of a vintage band. And I think he achieved that on here. It's got a modern sound in the sense I think it's recorded, on digital equipment. So everything kind of sounds modern, like it fits in with any kind of modern pop music that you might think of. But it's, you still hear, I was listening to the track Angry, which I think is one of the good solo tracks. It's got that really old raw guitar. I think it's probably Keith, but just kind of raw, just a touch sloppy, sound like, some people would say you need to do that again or something, but just great. You wouldn't want to do it again. It was perfect the first time. But it's got that kind of raw feel. The one thing I noticed in that regard, as I was watching an interview with Mick Jagger, and the album ends up with the track with just Keith and Mick called Rolling Stone Blues, and that's after the Muddy Waters song, which is where they got their name, and that's just Keith on guitar and Mick on harmonica, and they recorded it on tape. Now, when you listen to that, that's an interesting little study, because you listen to that Rolling Stone Blues, which I think they just kind of tossed on there, but it's actually maybe one of my favorite songs, and I listened to it several times and contrasted it. It's so easy to do nowadays. You just click, 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 I contrasted Rolling Stone Blues with something like Dreamy Skies, where you also have nice acoustic. So you have a lot of good acoustic guitars on here, like kind of like that country acoustic that the Stones were so good at, with dobro. But Dreamy Skies has that really there's several acoustic flavored songs, particularly when they start, you hear a lot of acoustic guitars. Dreamy Skies has that acoustic feel, and then the last song is just acoustic guitar, but it was on tape, and might be my favorite song on the album. It's just kind of a raw blues, which I love, but it also was recorded on tape, and I think you can hear the warmth and the harmonic saturation that tape always had. So when you listen to that, be sure to listen to that. It's they might have considered it kind of a throwaway track, but it might be my favorite song on here. Aside from the playing, and it's just great to hear Keith and Mick do a blues song together like that after all these years. But also the way it sounds, it was recorded on tape, and I definitely can hear the difference. And I think the tape sounds better. And the one thing, I think that Andrew Watt did a good job. It is like a modern but yet kind of classic rock Stones album, and that's sort of a hard balancing act if you think about it. I mean, sometimes it has a little bit of that Sticky Fingers or Exile on Main Street vibe, but mostly it does have kind of a modern edge. It sounds a little different than some of those other albums. Every once in a while, I thought I heard a little bit of modern production that made it sound a little bit digital. I don't know if that was my imagination. Some people say it has auto-tune. If there's auto-tune on there, another reviewer, I'm stealing his line, it's pretty sparing. The other thing I noticed maybe in that regard is I think they're playing a lot to click tracks, and I don't know how much they use click tracks on a lot of their classic albums, but I always think a click track kind of flattens out the feel of a song and kind of gives it a metronomic feel, and I was pretty sure on some of these they're playing click tracks because it's got that kind of that just steady beat that almost sounds like a drum machine, and they have a live drummer, Steve Jordan's on here, but it does sound kind of metronomic in some places, which is what a lot of EDM is, where they're not even using a live drummer, they're just using drum machines, and it's got that kind of relentless beat. Some people like that, but I kind of miss the old feel of live drummers. So they have great live drumming on here. I'm not that knowledgeable about drums, frankly. But once in a while, I thought maybe this would be better without a click track. I'm assuming they were using a click track, and because it just kind of it takes the naturalness of guitars and kind of flattens everything out. I've always thought. I've never liked click tracks, but maybe that's my imagination. It's basically a good album. You've got some really good songs on here. Sweet Sound of Heaven with Lady Gaga is the one everybody seems to think is just a standout track. That Dreamy Skies is very, very nice. Some really good, Depending on You is a good song. Angry is the one that they've kind of released a single of with the video, and the video has a lot of classic images of the Stones. I recognize a lot of them because I think they're pulled out of like Get Your Ya-Ya's Out, Ladies and Gentlemen, the Rolling Stones, Give Me Shelter. What was that one they did in the early 80s? They had a big Stones concert movie, I remember. So you see the Stones through the years in that video, but Angry is a good song. So this is definitely a good album, and it's so great to see the Stones. I was just thinking, Mick Jagger, I was watching an interview with him. He is 80? Paul McCartney's 80. Whatever Mick Jagger is, he's pushing 80 if he's not 80. And it's just amazing. I will say I was looking at his hair. His hair looks really great. And I was wondering, well, he either dyes his hair because his hair is just like brown, like a 21-year-old man's hair. And at first I thought, well, maybe he hasn't dyed really, and it's really kind of soft looking like a young man's hair too. Then I thought it might even be a wig. I guess I don't know if we should speculate that much, but his hair looks great. I don't want to say too much, but we used to have a guy in church. He dyed his hair just bowling ball black, and he was about 90. Wonderful man. I don't think he's around anymore, but he would sit up in the choir, and his hair would be bowling ball black, and he was about 90. And just the juxtaposition of this old man's face with like a bowling ball black hair, like some 20-year-old, and it was a little bit shades of that. But Mick Jagger looks great. It's unbelievable, really unbelievable. So the one thing I always take away is, the Stones are sort of associated with the rock and roll lifestyle. Sometimes people think that's bad. Actually, it might be pretty good because they're still kicking around. I don't, imagine standing up and playing at a show for 2-3 hours when you're 80 years old. When people are in rest homes, you're running around dancing, playing Brown Sugar and Start Me Up. They've done a lot of things right in their lives. And you look at interviews with any of those guys, they're really smart, creative people. And I was so glad to see this album come out. I also bought the CD version. I kind of broke it. I'm not much for CDs, so I don't even care. But I kind of broke it. But the one thing about the CD version is you actually get the lyrics. So you didn't get the lyrics on the vinyl, you get the lyrics on the CD version. Of course, nowadays the lyrics are so easily available. I remember the Stones were, when I was a kid, they were one of the people you would always try to figure out what Mick Jagger was saying, and sometimes it was just flat out impossible. His voice was kind of like a rhythm instrument, just kind of mixed in, and you couldn't always tell what he was saying. Well, at least here you get the lyrics. When I was a kid, you didn't know the lyrics, and there was no easy way to access them sometimes. But I did buy the CD. I wish there were some pictures in the vinyl, some nice pictures or a poster or something. Maybe there's a fancier version of the vinyl album that I didn't buy. But anyway, it's definitely a good album. I definitely recommend it. And if you're a Stones fan, and I don't think it's you should have it to support the band or sort of a sympathy purchase or something along those lines. It's just flat out a good album, and I'm sure you'll be hearing it mixed in with house band type party lists and things like that for years to come. It's got some really good songs on it. My favorite is that last one they recorded on tape. And just to close, you listen to that song on tape, I think you can hear the superiority of tape, that warmth. You can hear that guitar kind of saturate the tape and that harmonica. And I think that's one thing digital doesn't do. And so listening to that, and when I realized that last song was on tape, it made me think, man, that whole album should have been on tape. That would have been great, because I do think you can hear the difference. But definitely good album. Hats off to the Stones for coming through with yet another great album. R.I.P. to Charlie Watts. It's too bad he wasn't on this album, but it's a good one. Thanks. God bless.